It seems like most people in the US have heard of a chiropractor. They can point to one in their town, but not a lot of people know what chiropractic is. So, a few years ago, I heard today's guest say, chiropractic is the adjustment. And that simple explanation has stuck with me. So, I'm your host, Jenna Quinton, chiropractic advocate, founder of Adjust Your Media, and I'm so honored to have Dr. Tim Young today.
Having me, Sister. I appreciate you. Thank you.
So I want to talk about your awesome event, Focus Oklahoma City and Focus Foundations. But first, share a story with us. Tell us who got better with chiropractic care and how that adjustment helped them to heal themselves.
So, Jenna, I have almost 30 years of practice. I have hundreds of stories, but one of them that probably sticks out to me more than any other story is a story of a little boy named Oscar. Oscar was 4 years old when he came to the office. His mother brought him in, and Oscar's condition was pretty serious. He was 4 years old. He wasn't growing. They did MRI of his kidneys. His kidneys were the size of raisins. They were shriveling. One of them was worse than the other, and they actually had him on a kidney transplant list. He was 4 years old, and he couldn't control his bowels. He was still wearing a diaper. His mother wrote an entire story about the things that he had been going through. It was heartbreaking, Jenny. One of the things that he had said that sticks with me, this was years ago, he said he wishes that the kids in his school had Jesus in their heart because they were so mean to him because he couldn't control his bowels. He still had to wear a diaper. I mean, this little boy was going through a horrible time. So she brought him to me from a recommendation of a friend. She had already had him to every, orthopedic doctor, neurological doctor, pediatrician, all over the country. And all they could say was, we don't know. So they took x-rays, Jim, and in his lower back, there are 5 lumbar vertebrae in the lower back. Most people know that. Well, the third one, the one in the very middle, was what we call a hemivertebra, which means instead of being square, it was malformed. He had a genetic defect, a birth defect, where his vertebra looked like a slice of pizza. So instead of being square, it was shaped abnormally. And he had a curve, a lumbar curve right in the lower back. So after studying his x-rays and going over everything, I went to the area. The hemivertebra was locked in place. The joint was not moving appropriately. The lack of motion in his little spine, because it was stressing the nerve supply. So his brain was not allowed to communicate to his bowels, to his intestines, to his kidneys. They had a lack of communication. So I went in and I started adjusting him. I started moving that hemivertebra. Now, most doctors, matter of fact, the mother's doctor said, do not take him to a chiropractor. He's going to paralyze him, it's just a lack of education and knowledge on the medical profession. I started adjusting the hemivertebra. That was what restricted in space. So I'll make a very long story short. Within 6 months, little Oscar grew 6 inches. His kidneys tripled in size. His bowels started working again. Oscar was back. I received a message and a picture from Oscar about a year ago. He's now 19 years old. He's taller than I am, and he's doing great. Had we not adjusted that hemivertebra, had we not restored the proper motion, had we not allowed the brain then communicate to all the tissue cell, the organs, Oscar would have continued to deteriorate. But because of the chiropractic adjustment, he was allowed to thrive and survive. And that's one of my favorite stories.
Yeah. Well, and I love to look up the studies and things and share them in the show notes too. There are so many digestive issues in the world today, whether it is, from bedwetting and pelvic issues there to, Crohn's disease and IBS and, all the way to Oscar's case where it is just really a quality of life and, just no function happening there. I think that it is fascinating. That's something that so many chiropractic patients say, as I work with clients and their patients tell stories and testimonials, is that they're so surprised about their digestive issues clearing up. And, that whole story just puts it into so much perspective and makes that so clear that nerve supply not going to the digestive system, to the organs, to the tissues, like you said, it just can't function like it was designed to.
No, and what's important, so everybody understands this, a chiropractor does not treat digestive issues. A chiropractor does not treat kidney problems, or matter of fact, chiropractors don't treat back pain or neck pain or headaches.
Yeah.
It's a big misinterpretation. What chiropractors do is we look for spinal stress in the spine caused by either repetitive motion, repetitive or repetitive injury, or one big injury, or a spinal deformity, whatever it may be. That restriction then causes stress on the tissue. If you remove the stress, then the tissue is allowed to express, it's expelled to function. That's what chiropractors do, is we increase the function of the body, and then the symptoms then takes care of themselves. The body then heals itself. It's no different if you kind of think about this. If somebody gets shot and they have a bullet lodged somewhere, they go to the emergency room. Now, the emergency room doctor is going to perform surgery, and they're going to remove the interference from the body's ability to heal. As long as that tissue is tore and that bullet is there, they're never going to get better. But if he removes the interference, then the inborn intelligence, what we call innate intelligence, takes over and it heals. We do the same thing. We look for interference. Where is the body being interfered with? And when you remove that, then symptoms and conditions can be healed. Here's something that's very important that I want to share with the listeners. A lot of people say, well, but my child isn't sick. My child doesn't have this. My child doesn't have all these symptoms, or I don't have these symptoms, which is wonderful. They don't have them yet. So the question is, why do we teach our children to brush their teeth? Why wouldn't we wait until they develop a cavity, then tell them to brush? It's too late, right? It's too late by the time you receive a cavity. Why wait till our children develop asthma, allergies, bedwetting? Why wait till they develop ear infections or whatever condition that down the road, it may be something that they develop when they're a teenager later on that can be prevented with proper chiropractic care, with proper adjustment, removing the stress. They'll never experience those things in the first place. So to me, and I lecture to chiropractors all over the world, I will tell them the adjustment that removes the stress to someone with no symptoms and no diseases is a bigger miracle as the one that you made the adjustment and watch the disease go away. Because I would rather never develop that condition instead of trying to get rid of it. And that's what I hope people understand.
Yes, absolutely. You do, like you mentioned, talking to chiropractors and coaching them. I want to shift gears into talking about how you share these stories and you encourage doctors to share them with more people and have that impact of really changing the culture of healthcare in this world. So I want to thank you, because Focus Oklahoma City was the first chiropractic conference that I ever went to. I came in 2020. I came just as a guest of Dr. Glenn Jaffe, and it was a moment where I was a little shaken in my faith in the body. I had a friend who was sick, and it was a powerful personal moment for me, which has become one of the things that is how I measure a chiropractic conference. Did it personally impact me? And at that conference, now I'm going to get all emotional, but your daughter, Dr. Alicia, spoke, and she's phenomenal.
Yeah, she's my hero.
Yeah, absolutely. So she spoke and she gave me the kindest shout out, but it was when I was driving back home. So I live in Kansas, an easy drive from Oklahoma City. So I'm driving home Saturday, sunset. And it was at that moment that I was like, hearing this all day, I need to recommit myself to getting checked weekly. I had kind of gotten to a point where I was like, does any of this even matter? And, maybe if I go once in a while, I'll be okay. And I was like, no, you know what? I need to get checked weekly. If this is what I'm talking about, thinking about doing, I need to get checked weekly. So I think that was one of the things that has made Focus Oklahoma City stand out to me is the personal impact. And I think that is one way that I can say that it's a powerful tool that you have brought into this world to help chiropractors to have a bigger impact. So tell us more about this event, how it got started, and what you do with that.
before I get in, I want to touch on something you said that's very powerful. What you decided to do is you decided to invest your time, your money, and your energy back into you. The number one greatest investment you will ever make in your life is back into you. So many times chiropractors think that people pay them for their services, and they don't. And sometimes people think that they are spending money on a service. You're not. What people do is, like you and everyone else that sees a chiropractor, you're investing your time and your money and your energy back into not only your current health, but your future health. You can invest your money into alcohol or drugs or fast food, or you can invest your money into those things because that's what you're really doing. And your return isn't very good, but your return on chiropractic is exponential. And the way that started, is when I was young. My uncle was a chiropractor, and I started going to see him when I was in the 5th grade, and just for football injuries and just wrestling and just go see Uncle Bill. Well, when I was 18 years old, I was involved in a horrible car accident. I broke my back. I broke my ribs. It was really, really bad. And I had just started to lift weights, and I just started a bodybuilding career. I was really young. And the orthopedic doctors, the surgeons, and the doctors came to me at the emergency room and said, well, we did an MRI, and you have a fracture in your spine, and you have broken ribs and all these things. And they said, your weightlifting days are over. You're never going to be able to sustain that, and you will probably limp for the rest of your life. So you get told this at 18 years old, and it's devastating. Well, I went and had this conversation with my uncle, and I told him, this is what the doctor said. And he just kind of shook his head, and he had a few choice words, and he said, lay down. So he starts adjusting me. In 6 weeks, I was back in the gym working out. In 6 months, I won my first teenage bodybuilding show. So I have a very personal relationship and experience with the power of a chiropractic adjustment. But then it goes on. So I was in the Navy. I was going to be a Navy SEAL. I was going to do all these things. And because of some injuries I sustained in the Navy, they wanted to do exploratory back surgery on me, right? And I was only 22 years old. I just knew the word exploratory and back surgery should never be used together.
No.
And so I said, no, I don't think so. And so I said, well, the only thing we can do is release you from the Navy and send you home. Jen, at that very moment, God laid his hand on my shoulder and said, you will be a chiropractor. Mm-hmm. And so I got through school, and then the trials and tribulations of opening a practice. I got married, raising a family, but the experience in the office, day after day, week after week, month after month, patient after patient, miracle after miracle, health condition after the things that I saw was so unbelievable. And then I started gaining certainty, and I started gaining confidence. And then I really went all in. I wanted to become a master at my adjusting technique. I wanted to understand. I wanted to know why all this was happening. And through the years, I built one of the largest practices really in the world, one of the most successful ones. And I did it all word of mouth referral. I did it by getting people well. Well, Jenna, what happens is when you do that, you gain a lot of recognition, and people want to know, how did you do that? And then I started to understand that a lot of people, but even a lot of chiropractors, they never had that experience. They didn't understand. So then I was asked to come speak on my success, come speak on the results that I'm getting, and share that with a small group, and then another small group, and then the groups got bigger. And the next thing you know, I'm speaking in front of 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people, large auditoriums, and telling them my story.
Yeah.
So that's what that was the catalyst. I thought, you know what? This message, the message of chiropractic, the message of true healing and where it comes from the inside out, is so powerful, and it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to the world. And if I don't take what I've been given and share it, then it's disrespectful to the power that shared that with me, like how it was revealed. So 15 years ago, it'd be 15 years ago this July, in my head, I was on a long bike ride right out here by my house, and I got to the end of 15 miles, and I turned around and started to come back. In my mind, focus. Focus stands for the fountain of chiropractic understanding. That's and I already, by the time I got home, I had my speakers. I created my first talk. We had 300 people show up at the first meeting.
Wow.
And 15 years later, Focus, our seminar, had become one of the largest and most well-known throughout the world. We have speakers that come in from the UK and Scotland, Spain, all over the world. They come into Oklahoma City. People come from all over to listen and share and celebrate the message of chiropractic. And that's where all that came from, is just in my heart, I knew that it had to be shared. It was not meant for me to keep to myself. It was meant for me to share. And that's why I'm doing this with you, Jenna, because the people that are listening to this message right now, they need to hear the truth. And that's why I'm here.
Absolutely. I love that. When I was a teenager, someone suggested a book to me, Writing About Your Life by William Zenzer. And in it, he says, God gives, I'm paraphrasing, but he says, God gives his best stories to people who will tell them. And I have
Absolutely.
always taken that as a writer as my God-given responsibility. If I'm given a story, then this is my responsibility. And, sometimes it is like, how is this supposed to be shared? Is this supposed to be shared in person? Is this supposed to be shared in a blog post? Or is this supposed to be shared on a stage? But I love that you answered that call to share it as an event and to invite others to participate in that. I think that that's a really beautiful thing. Then you also have Focus Foundations where you're also sharing that story. So tell us about that a little bit.
So it was interesting. I was on a coaching call this morning. I had a 14 this morning. One was in Spain, one was in Malaysia, and one was in the UK. And the doctor from Spain, he asked me a question. He said, Dr. Young, I want to know, just from you, what is your purpose on the planet? What do you think your sole purpose is? And I thought for a minute, and I know what it is, but I wanted to articulate it. My purpose is to create the very best version of me that I can create, and then give that version to the world. That way, the world can then create the best version of them with my knowledge and my story. They can take that, create a better version of who they are, and then they go give that to the world. To me, there's no greater purpose on the planet. And so the same way I share my story with everyone, but the individual chiropractor, the one that may come out of school that doesn't understand how to run a business or run a proper practice, they may, not know exactly how to articulate or speak to a patient. They may not know how to adjust very well. There's just all sorts of entities on running a business and running a practice. It's not just being, you just don't go to school and learn to be a chiropractor and then you're out and be successful. It doesn't work that way. And there are struggling doctors. They're struggling either financially, they're struggling on a system, they're struggling on their philosophy and understanding of true health. And I have such great experiences that I created a program called Focus Foundations, where then the doctors can join in my group. And we now have 450 doctors in almost 20 countries that I have video online coaching that I teach them. I show them. I have video in my office. I really reach out and I do one-on-one coaching, and I go through details on, first and foremost, be a great person. Who you are speaks so loudly that they don't care what you know. Jenna, what I teach more than anything is that the chiropractic practice, your life, your relationships, everything, everybody listen to this. It doesn't matter if you're a doctor, a chiropractor or not. It doesn't matter. Your entire world comes from you, not to you. And so the person you are when you step into a chiropractic office is first. You got to know who you are. You got to know what you do. You got to know why you do it. And then we can work on proper exams. We can work on how to read an x-ray properly. We can work on how to properly make a very specific adjustment, how to take care of children, how to communicate without wearing people out. All those things are important, but the person you are is the most important. And that's why I created Focus Foundations, and it exploded worldwide. So I'm really proud. And again, it's just giving back to the profession that has given me so much.
I love that. Yes, it is so powerful that all of this, like all combined, like you said, it is that inside out, that above down, inside out. I think that as doctors, as so many people who are helpers and healers, and even my husband is a firefighter paramedic, and the compassion fatigue that people can get, and it's like, yes, but if you're the best version, if you are full and healthy and well and mentored yourself and coached yourself to be to your most potential, then will you get burned out? Will you get fatigued? It's a burnout and compassion fatigue are just, everywhere that I look. And so I
Yes.
love that this reminder, like you said, your purpose, being the best you is something that all of us need.
Yeah, and what happens, Jenna, is, and I've been using this analogy a lot, is something because not only do I do a lot of personal coaching, I do a lot of one-on-one coaching, not only chiropractic coaching, but business coaching, but more than anything is personal development and relationships. And there are so many people going through divorces right now or going through separations. People that I know that have been married for 20, 22, 25 years. And Jenna, here's how everyone needs to look at this. If you've ever looked at anybody morbidly obese, right? And you don't judge them, you don't have hatred for them, but you have a question. How did that happen? How did a human being that at one time was normal weight, that now is, let's say, 200 pounds overweight, how does that happen? Did they not see that coming? And the answer to the question is 1 pound at a time, one pound at a time. Well, here's the thing, a relationship. How did, after 20 years, you fall out of love? One day at a time. One missed conversation, one missed date night, 1 week of not properly communicating, 1 day of not saying I love you. I mean, 1 day turns into a week, turns into a month, and then you ignore it. And the next thing you know, 10 years goes by and you're 200 pounds overweight. You're not in love. You don't even know that person. Financially, it's the same thing. How do you go from making a good salary to being broke every week? $1 at a time. $1 at a time. How do you get overweight and unhealthy? 1 meal at a time, right? And this is what happens. Is the reason I bring all this up. I talk to chiropractors about this. How do you not become a successful chiropractor? Because you ignore that one patient, that one adjustment was so important, but you ignored it because what's the big deal? It's always a big deal, Jenna. Every moment of our life, every moment is a precious gift. Every opportunity we have to say something kind or do something kind or serve or give, every moment is a precious gift from God. And if we ignore that, then one day we wake up and we're broke, we're lonely, and we're unhealthy, and we're unhappy. But if we're consciously present and we take every moment as a gift and we work on who we are, then those moments add up. And the next thing you know, and I have to share with everybody listening to this, I am 57 years old. I've been in practice 29 years. My wife and I have been together 29 years. We're going on a date night tonight. We have not missed a date night in 29 years. Once a week, we've never missed. We're more in love today than we've ever been. I am happier today than I've ever been. And I didn't fall into this. I wasn't lucky. It was paying attention every day and working on it. I mean, to this day, I get up every morning, Jen. I got my book I've got laying here is Breakfast with Seneca. I'm studying 2,000-year-old Roman philosophy, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
And what I want to do is I want to learn more about the human condition. I want to learn more about how people work. Because if I understand more about me, then I can reach out and help you. And to me, that's the greatest mission we could all have.
Amen. Well, I'm going to wrap this up because this has been so powerful and so valuable and helpful. Just, I think that, condensed in, it is even, everything you said about health. It is that one stressor, that one subluxation, that one, nerve that isn't quite working quite as well, that then adds up to this, state of unhealth, this state of less life, less light, less life. There's another L.
It's an expression. So it's one little slip and fall, one little car accident, one little pickup, something wrong, just one at a time. And then what happens is, let's say, I use this example a lot. Let's say a 2-year-old is running through the house and they run into a coffee table and they hit their head and their head snaps back, right? And they cry and they got a bruise they got a bump on their head. Okay, well, then they quit crying and they're fine. They're not fine. Their head snapped back and the 5th bone in the neck gets pushed forward. Now, all of a sudden, they're 17 years old and they have chronic asthma, and they have chronic allergies, or they have migraines. And then someone says, well, they must have been born with it. No, they acquired it when they were 2 years old. Or maybe you got a mother sitting at a stoplight and she gets hit from behind. It only takes 3 miles an hour for whiplash. Her head snaps back and forward. Now next year, 5 years later, she can't open and close her hand because she's got neuropathy. It was one day at a time. So everything is so important. Every adjustment. So for the people that are thinking about chiropractic, don't think about it. It's an investment into your future.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you for investing in the world and for continuing to share all of this with everyone. I, for one, am looking forward to Focus Oklahoma City in July. I'm going to
Can't wait to see you.
all of the different ways to connect with you and find you in the show notes. And yeah, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate you so much, dear. You are a bright light in a hole, and we need you. Thank you.
Well, thank you.